With the Me Too movement and rampant publicizing of sexual assault allegations, it's easy for media outlets, politicians, and scholars to mislead people about the prevalence of rape. Also, confirmation bias and poor critical thinking skills lead people to embrace or dismiss rape related claims based merely on their personal experiences, assumptions, or prejudices. How can we learn the truth about this horrible crime? Let's look at just facts. An essential part of measuring how often rape occurs is simply defining it, which can be complicated. According to federal law, rape is defined as a sexual act committed upon another person by force or threat of force, threats of bodily harm, rendering a victim unconscious, and giving someone without the knowledge or consent of that person a drug, intoxicant, or other similar substance, and thereby substantially impairing the ability of that other person to appraise or control conduct. But others rely on broader and more subjective definitions of rape. For example, a 2014 report by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention measures the prevalence of rape by including everyone who has had sex and later said they were unable to consent because they were drunk or high. This same report measures sexual violence by including all people who have engaged in any sort of activity, including kissing, because they felt pressured in a non-physical way. The range of social pressures the CDC report features includes false promises, lies, an overbearing boss, and someone wearing you down by repeatedly asking for sex or showing they were unhappy. Senator Dianne Feinstein cited this same report when she claimed, in the United States, it's estimated by the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men will experience some form of sexual violence in their lifetime. Senator Cory Booker cited this report as evidence that this toxic culture, this pernicious patriarchy in this country has to stop. There are actually no precise figures on rape. But there is credible data gathered from females in the U.S. which indicates that about 11.5% of women say they have been the victim of acts that fit the legal definition of forcible rape. These findings are consistent with a 1987 study by the U.S. Department of Justice. The FBI collects and tabulates reported cases of rape from local law enforcement agencies, but these figures don't account for all rapes because rape victims often don't report these crimes. A 2012 report from the U.S. Department of Justice found that 65% of rapes and sexual assaults were not reported to the police from 2007 to 2010. Why? 28% said they feared reprisal or getting the offender in trouble. 20% said they dealt with it in another way or considered it a personal matter. 13% said they thought the police wouldn't help. 6% said they felt the incident was not important enough to report. And 33% gave another reason or said they didn't have a single most important reason. Also, local law enforcement agencies sometimes fail to properly record rapes. A joint university and law enforcement investigation that began in 2009 found thousands of untested sexual assault kits in Detroit police storage facilities. When it comes to the college scene, data from studies conducted by the U.S. Department of Justice and the National Institute of Justice indicate that each year approximately 2.1% of college women say they have been the victim of acts that fit the legal definition of rape. But only 46% of these women consider these acts to be rape because the legal definition of rape covers a wider range of behavior than some victims realize. College-age women who are not enrolled in college are 50% more likely to say they have been raped than women who are enrolled. Given the last of these facts, the media's focus on college rape appears misplaced, because this issue is primarily about age, not about the safety or culture of universities. Other studies point to the same conclusion. For instance, the CDC's 2014 report on sexual assault found that 40% of female rape victims were first raped before the age of 18, and 79% were raped before the age of 25. Likewise, the U.S. Department of Justice study found that the incidence of reported forcible rapes peaked at the ages of 14 and 15 years and remained relatively high through the age of 25. Now, what about the common talking point that only 2% of rape claims are false? This 2% figure actually comes from a study of rapes reported to police during 2000 to 2003 in Victoria, a state in southeastern Australia. It only counts a very small category of rapes, and it states the findings will show a much larger proportion of cases where police were confident or reasonably confident that the allegations were false. Snopes, an organization that claims to be engaged in the battle against misinformation, argues that a 2016 meta-analysis of 7 studies on the subject allegedly puts the false accusation rate at around 5%. This meta-analysis actually says that at least 5% of sexual assault allegations are confirmed false reports, and potentially many more false report cases exist. In fact, this paper lists 4 different studies that measure the frequency of suspected false allegations, and found false reporting rates above 40%. But contrary to the claims of some reporters and notable organizations, credible academic research is clear that there are no sound estimates for the portion of rape claims that are false. The nature of this disinformation has to do with media outlets and so-called fact-checkers mischaracterizing their sources, and in turn their sources mischaracterizing the relevant studies. That's why it is important to dig down to primary sources, which are those that provide direct or first-hand evidence. That is one of the key factors that separates Just Facts from typical media coverage. In summary, even though conclusive data on the prevalence of rape is not available, about 1 in 10 women say they have been the victim of acts that constitute forcible rape. Add to this cases of statutory rape and attempted rape, which are not included in the data above, and the actual number may be significantly worse. All of this raises a crucial question. How can we prevent rape? For straightforward answers to this, see our video, Facts About Rape Prevention. For thorough documentation of every fact in both of these videos, read the article Rape Facts and Falsehoods at justfactsdaily.com.